Greetings and welcome to our daily walk with Scripture for January the 18th. Today's readings should have found you in Genesis 37 and 38, Matthew chapter 12, Psalm 16, and also Proverbs 3, continuing Proverbs 3. And as you read, there's a couple of interesting little themes that we look at here in today's reading. And it's one that I think honestly, we're kind of uncomfortable talking about, depending on how you were raised. And for that, I'm talking about the supernatural. Now, I was raised Southern Baptist, and Southern Baptists, we don't really like to talk about the supernatural aspect of things. I mean, we think that God can heal people, and we think that God can do those kind of things, but to be honest, we don't really like to talk about it, and we really don't like to pursue it a whole lot. And on the other side of the spectrum, we know that there have been some people that have kind of taken the idea of healing and speaking in tongues and taken it to the next level. I don't think either one of those directions is particularly healthy. I think there's a middle ground. And as you read the encounters in Scripture from our readings today, you can't help but notice that there are some supernatural aspects to it. Genesis chapter 37, we see Jacob's dream. Well, that begs the question, does God still speak to us in dreams? I mean, Joseph's dream was incredibly powerful, and it was prophetic. It showed exactly what was going to happen to Joseph over the years. Now, obviously, that took a good solid 40 years to actually happen, but for Joseph to have these dreams and then for God to bring them fruition is definitely a supernatural thing. My dreams get weird, I got to tell you. And I haven't really put a whole lot of thought into whether or not those dreams are necessarily prophetic. But there's certainly things for me to think about and to cogitate on. In Matthew chapter 12, we see also talking about a demon-possessed man that Jesus healed. And this man healed a demon. Now, some people would look at it and go, oh, well, it wasn't really a demon. He probably just had some other affliction. No. You see, the interesting thing about it is if you read the encounters with Jesus, they are very clear. When a person has a medical issue, they are healed of the medical issue. When a person has a demon, they are healed of the demon. The two are not the same thing. So there has to be a supernatural aspect of it. And we read these encounters in the Bible and we think, that was back then. Well, what makes us think the supernatural doesn't happen now? It does. I believe it does. I don't fully understand it. I don't claim to try to understand it. As a matter of fact, more often than not, I'm wrestling with it. How does some of the spiritual gifts that we talk about, there are people that are called cessationists, which believe that certain spiritual gifts no longer happen. I don't believe that that's the case. I do think that we're in a world today that abuses spiritual gifts. There's no doubt about that. But to say that these spiritual gifts have stopped, I don't believe that is the case. There's still supernatural healing happen. There's absolutely still encounters of people speaking in tongues. And we see it in a variety of different ways, in a variety of different venues. I don't think it's as pervasive as some places would try to make it out to be, but I also don't think it doesn't exist anymore. But these are things that we need to wrestle with. And we need to understand that there is an aspect of God that we will never fully understand. Not even just here, but for eternity, we're going to get to try to understand God and know Him better. We have finite brains, whereas God, He doesn't. But we should never discount the supernatural aspects of it, of what God does. Because He is always working. There is no doubt that there is a visible world that we see, but we also know that there is an invisible world that we see. And we know that there are spiritual battles happening all the time. And we should never discount those or ignore those because we think, that stuff happened in the past. But there are also limitations to this. In verse 38 of Matthew 12, some of the scribes and Pharisees answered him, saying, "Teacher, we wish to see a sign from you." And Jesus replies and kind of rebukes them and says, you know what? The only sign you guys are going to get is that I'm going to die and I'm going to be resurrected. The thing about it is, for those guys, it wasn't even enough to see a man come from the dead. They wanted to see some piddly little signs. Oh, heal this person's arm, make this person better. If we're opening our eyes and willing to open our minds and eyes to see what God is doing, then I believe we start to see the supernatural workings that God does. So my encouragement to you is pray for your eyes to be opened. Pray for your heart to be open to see where God is moving, not just in the visible world, but in the supernatural, in the invisible world, so that we can truly be blessed, so that when the Son of Man rises, we don't miss it. When God does amazing and miraculous things, we don't miss it. We don't want to be the generation of Pharisees and Sadducees. We want to be a generation that is changed because of the change maker. Have a blessed day. We'll talk next time.